Welcome, Joaquim, and thank you for joining us today for this broadcast.
Thank you, Ray. It's my pleasure.
So perhaps first of all, you could tell us about your connection with ESOMAR before being elected president.
Yeah. So my relationship with ESOMAR goes back to many years. Firstly, from the respectful distance of the practitioner to the institution that sets the standards of the profession and had the best research papers. So I had a huge respect for the institution, but I have to say that I was not too much involved in its activities. It was a distant institution for me. But once I joined NetQuest 10 years ago and started to expand the business internationally, ESOMAR events were my networking and business platforms. They were an excellent opportunity for NetQuest to position the company in the worldwide market, and we did it. And by nature, I got soon involved with the content. I really started to love those conferences and the sort of things that were discussed there. I learned a lot from the World Congress to the APAC, LATAM, and more particular conferences. And in 2014, the then President Dan Foreman suggested me to run for the council elections. I had not considered that before, but I did, and I ran. I got in council, and I just started to get more and more engaged and involved until now that I just ran for president and was elected.
And congratulations on that too.
Oh, thank you.
So perhaps we can start with the big question. What is ESOMAR for? Or to put it another way, if it didn't exist, would we have to invent it?
Sure. ESOMAR is the global voice of the data, research, and insights community. Speaking on behalf of over 6,000 individual professionals and more than 500 companies who provide to commission data analytics and research in more than 130 countries, all of whom agreed to uphold the ICC ESOMAR International Code. So together with national and international research associations, we set and promote professional standards and self-regulation for our sector and encourage, advance, and advocate the role and value of data analytics, market, and opinion research. In other words, ESOMAR is the place where the data, research, and insights community find content for their day-to-day practice and mid and long-term strategy. It is the place where they can network and create business opportunities, and very importantly, it is the organization that defends and advocates for the good of our profession. And I would outstand, Ray, a very recent success on this last aspect. So 2 weeks ago, we got informed by the European Commission that the coalition led by ESOMAR to defend the research practice in front of the copyright directive had convinced the legislator. So in other words, ESOMAR has played a fundamental role to guarantee the practice of what we call social media listening. We have guaranteed the exception for the text and data mining in this copyright new directive. So yes, if it did not exist, we will have to invent ESOMAR.
And in your early speeches and your messages to the members and to the wider community, you've talked about bridges quite a lot. Presumably, you think that we need to connect with people outside our own silo.
Yeah. I have always defined myself as a bridge builder. I consider myself a connector. So this is my natural tendency, to build bridges. So this is not so odd that I start talking about bridges. And it is because I believe that our industry needs to break silos, as you mentioned. Technology has digitized our societies. I am now based in Barcelona. In fact, I'm based in Barcelona, where this week the Mobile World Congress is held. So technology comes to my city in a huge intensity. And it allows me to say that there is not a single sector, not a single market that has not been impacted very intensely by the digitization of our societies. And so has the market research. So today, the heart of the customer understanding is not being held only by the traditional market researchers. A very significant number of new available data sets have appeared, bringing new professionals to the field. So today, the customer understanding is more rich than ever. And we need to be smart enough to get the best of the two worlds. The 100 years of experience, understanding of consumers and citizens, and the new techniques that the digital life brings to the table.
And how do you envisage these bridges working when we're talking about other practices?
So not so long ago, Ray, and you have been witness of that, in our events there was this eternal differentiation between qual and quant. I perfectly remember introducing myself to people and people telling me I'm quant or I'm qual, and it had a very strong meaning and indeed a sense of pride embedded to that. And of course, the entry to the trade determines your approach to the activity. So qual and quant abilities are more valid than ever, of course. However, the digital world has brought us the capability of knowing what people do, what people prefer, and indeed what people feel without actively interacting with them. Not a single question, not a single conversation, and we can know what they do, what they prefer, and what they feel. So this is a revolution for our practice, and we need to take advantage of that. So a new profession has risen, this cool profession tagged as data scientist, but in essence, it is not that new. Data scientists seek the same as qual and quant professionals have been seeking for decades. And the beauty that we face now, the beauty we have now, it is that we have the opportunity to add these new capabilities and blend approaches, blend methodologies, blend practices, because the purpose is the same, is to get the holistic view of consumers, of people, of citizens, and create true customer-centric companies, true customer-centric institutions and organizations.
Now, of course, ESOMAR is not the only organization out there. There are national bodies, there are international bodies, there are sort of other players which are not trade bodies. How are we going to build bridges to other organizations?
Let me also say, Ray, that we are fortunate for that. I mean, I think it's a good evidence of the richness of our profession that we as community try to get organized and pursue to safeguard and work for our profession. So to your question, I always have the same answer. The challenges we all face, are so immense that we have no other option but to work together, to collaborate. We all pursue to help our current members to get adapted to this new era. And as well, we pursue to enlarge the footprint of the insights community. Let's cooperate. Let's cooperate in showing the legislator the need for research and help the legislator to properly legislate our activity. Let's cooperate in showing our societies all the positive aspects that the research activity brings to their lives. Let's cooperate in elevating our profession, in elevating the attractiveness of our profession that will lead us to attract the best young talents. Let's cooperate in elevating our standards and excel in the implementation of ethics in our day-to-day activity.
And what about bridges to the future? Because the future is like really important to all of us, I'm sure.
It is. The present is very important and the future as well. I like history. I like a lot to talk about the past. But the past has to help us to understand how we got to our reality today, and we have to work for the future. So as insights professionals, as professionals responsible to know and understand the trends of our societies, we need to practice what we preach. So we must be constantly up to date. We must bring innovation in our organizations, and we have to lead the adaptation of our organizations to disruption and change. So yes, I couldn't agree more. The past serves us to understand the trends, but we have to focus our activity, our mind, our sights to build the future.
And one of the things that ESOMAR has been doing is YES. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about YES.
Sure. YES stands for Young ESOMAR Society. So this is the platform that ESOMAR created some years ago to attract, retain, and give service to the youngest professionals of our sector. So it's been a very, very successful platform, and we have incremented very significantly the number of members coming from this young aspect of professionals. And it's very important. It's very important that we always think of bringing new talent, new points of views, new techniques, new way of doing things. So by bringing new talents, we have that. But I would like to reinforce that this YES approach is embedded into what I call the diversity policy that ESOMAR has to have. We are a 71-year-old association, but we are a modern one. We are updated, and we believe that diversity is a policy that we have to work on. Diversity on age, that would be the yes society. Diversity on gender, or diversity on origins. So we have to be good in bringing all the different aspects that our world has in all these terms. So ESOMAR is plural, we are diverse, and we have to be brilliant with this diversity.
And finally, there'll be some people listening to this broadcast who are not members of ESOMAR, surprising as that is to you and I. What is your pitch to them? Why should they join us in this journey and become members of ESOMAR?
The power of the community. Let me use the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Together, we achieve great things. ESOMAR gives you, as individual, the tools to be a better professional. It gives you access to the best content in the field via events and publications. And if you cannot attend events because they are too far, you have no time, or maybe you cannot afford at that moment that event, you have all papers and presentations available on the web. It gives you, as individual, access to your peers, being clients, being competitors, and stays you connected to the market. It brings you the ability to be a good networker and access to business. And finally, by being a member, you contribute to elevate your profession. ESOMAR is constantly defending and advocating for the good of our profession. So being a member, participating at ESOMAR activities wherever they are, contribute to make ESOMAR more relevant. And ESOMAR can help you to be more relevant. So I always like to say that the more you use ESOMAR, the more you can benefit from it. So take it.
Yeah, let's hope that plenty more do. Certainly the numbers are going up, which is a great sign.
Yeah, we are.
So Joaquim, thank you so much for that. It's been enlightening, and I'm sure people will find it really interesting to discuss it with you further.
Thank you, Ray. And I really invite all listeners to go on with your NewMR Week of Research, which is a splendid initiative that indeed it helps to elevate our profession by really sharing good experiences and contributing to these debates and dialogues that we must have as profession. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Joaquim. And we've got time for one or possibly two questions. And there is one already, which is, you mentioned the copyright law that ESOMAR has been working on. What is the copyright law, and what's the implications of the conclusion?
Okay, the copyright law is one of the directives that sit in the digital agenda of the European Union. And among other things, this copyright law, what wants to guarantee is the ownership of what you produce as individuals. So whatever you produce as individual on, for instance, the social media, it belongs to you. So for academic purposes, it was exempted that academia people should ask every one of the individuals from which they wanted to subtract any sort of input. So imagine that you publish a post on Facebook or on Instagram or tweet, wherever. If they wanted to analyze and work on one of these posts, they should ask for your permission. And this was also applied for market researchers. So market researchers or social media listeners, if we were interested in working with some data coming from this social media, we were obliged to ask for every single individual for the permission to use what they have produced. So if we think of the work that it would imply for social media listening, I would say that it's almost impossible to run social media listening as a practice on its own if we had to ask every single individual that we want to analyze in our studies if we had to ask for permission, that would make it totally impossible to run. So this is this exemption on this directive that the coalition led by ESOMAR has obtained from the European Union.
Yeah, that's a great example. One of the things that people who pay a membership fee don't see are a lot of the invisible things where ESOMAR's sort of legal team are talking to European Parliament, they're talking to the Russian government, they're talking to governments in other parts of the countries to try to make sure that the laws permit proper market research.
That's it. Yeah, because the legislator just starts to create laws, and most of the occasions they don't really know how it impacts other activities. So that's why we need to teach them the purpose of everything we do and how we do it. So that's it, very important to set those standards that keep us always in the favorable eye of the legislator as the professionals that take, for instance, everything related to privacy very seriously, because this is the way we gain the respect from the legislator.
So, thank you so much for that, Joaquim. Thank you so much for dialing in from Barcelona.
Thank you, Ray.